Do any of you have glasses, and when you like drink a hot coffee or just a hot tea or any hot drink, your glasses just fog up? It sucks. What is going on, guys? Hope you're all killing it, having a fantastic day. My name is Corey. This mop is never usually on display, but it is today. So I think I'm just gonna blame my laziness and probably a little bit of it on quarantine. This needs to go. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's been subscribing lately. It's been pretty cool to see the number jump up. I know that's not what it all means, but it just gives me a little boost to be motivated to create more videos. What are your thoughts on this angle? Like, looks pretty cool. I'm currently on the 50 mil, the nifty 50, good old nifty 50. Actually, I'm shooting on the 20 mil, which I will be.
20 minutes later.
You've seen the title. You just want to see my 3 favorite tools in Lightroom that I currently am using pretty much on every single photo that I upload on Instagram or Facebook. Let's jump into the computer. To get into these tips, you might need to grab a coffee or a tea or whatever you drink, hot chocolate even, just because it just gives you that little bit of a boost when you're editing your photos. So that's a tip: coffee, tea, hot chocolate, whatever suits you. That gets you the bangers. Woo! So we've got Lightroom booted up, we've got our image that we want to edit imported into the catalog. Now it's time to create some bangers using the 3 tools that I'm about to show you. First tool that I'm going to highly recommend everyone to use is the radial filters, which you can find on the top right of the Lightroom interface. Click on the radial filter. That will drop down a bunch of sliders with a bunch of settings to muck around with. Usually with the radial filter, I like to use a vignette, so that is like the darkness around the edges of my image, just to draw the viewer's eye into the image and highlight particular spots of that image that I really want to draw emphasis to. I did create a very slight vignette in Photoshop using the curves adjustment, but I just want to make it a little bit more darker here in Lightroom, just to draw even more attention to the center of the image where that moon is actually rising. So I'm just going to jump over to the effects tab on the right hand side of the module. Click on that and you can select any of these settings here, which will adjust according to what you select. So I'm going to select the exposure because I want the vignette to affect the outside. I'm just going to bring that down, the exposure, just so I can get a nice even spread around it. I'm going to make sure the feather is 100% because I don't want any harsh edges around the vignette. Then I'm simply going to click and drag, and that will create a circle. You can hold shift and that will keep the radial filter pretty much circle. But I like to give it a bit of an oval shape with the vignette. So I'm just going to extend that. I'm also going to bring it up a little bit more, like that. And basically, once you have that radial filter set, you can muck around with all the settings and it will affect just within that area. It's just down to your personal preference and your personal taste in your own photos, because at the end of the day, it is your photos. You take the creative choice into choosing what goes into your image and what doesn't. So that's all into your imagination and mind flow. So tool number 2 is actually within the radial filter module, which is where you can refine the edges and refine that radial filter a little bit more. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So say you've got the vignette that you want to, let's just say like these rocks here in the foreground, I want to brighten them up and make them probably a little bit more blue and purpley. A way you can do that is you can create a radial filter and do an overall global adjustment. If you don't want it to affect the outside, which is exactly what it's doing now, hit the invert button down here and that will invert just inside of that circle and make sure the feather's 100%. And I'm just gonna muck around here to what I think will look pretty cool. So I just wanna bring the blue, probably a little bit of magenta into it. So that's probably a bit too much, so I'm just gonna bring it down a touch. A little bit of contrast. I might even bring the shadows up a touch. And that is looking sweet. So as you can see with this radial filter, it created a global effect over the particular image, which I really don't like in the grass here in between the rocks. I feel like they should be under the shadow, and I just want to draw the highlights of those rocks from the moon glowing on them. What you can do is the brush tool here on the top right. So you've got new edit brush. Click on the brush, it will drop down this menu underneath the settings and the sliders from above on the radial filter settings. What you can simply do is just click on the erase button here on the right side and just size down, well, I'm just gonna size down the brush to around 5. And I'm going to bring up the flow so it's a bit more harsh on the edges. If I do it to, I don't know, let's do it to 4, you won't be able to see the adjustment as well as what you can with the flow up a little bit higher. So I'm just going to go in between these rocks. This is just rough for this video, but you can see the example and what the effect is and how you can use it in your own images. So I think this is a very, very powerful tool within the radial filter module that you can really dodge and burn particular spots of your images to draw the viewer's eyes into highlighted spots of your image. The radial filter brush is one I highly recommend as well, and you can really refine that edge. Tool number 3, I guess you could call it a tool, is the color calibration of the actual image. So you can manipulate particular colors. So the blues, you want them more of an aqua teal sort of color, and you can really adjust some of the colors to make it really pop and stand out from the rest of the images that you see on Instagram and Facebook. So you're just gonna scroll all the way down to the bottom. This is also a little bonus tip as well. Remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. That is pretty much at the start of every single part of my workflow. So say I went out shooting and I just brought the images back into Lightroom and I'm starting the process of post-production. Those 2 buttons are the first thing that I click every single time that I import a raw file into my catalog. That just corrects the distortion in the lens, and it also removes the chromatic aberration, especially if you're starting out. If you're advanced, you probably already know that, but there's just a bonus tip for you. So the color calibration is actually under the calibration module, and here is where you play around with the colors. Pretty much just slide them left to right. See, I think that looks pretty cool, but you can just manipulate the colors to create an effect that is very different to what you normally see. So I actually love that tealy, aquary sort of blue. But yeah, that's just a really, really cool way to manipulate your colors without going into each individual hue and correcting it from that. This is kind of more of a global adjustment, which I think is pretty cool because it creates some really, really cool effects. So the color calibration tool is my 3rd favorite tool that I always use in Lightroom. So that is it. I hope you guys did enjoy and learn something new. At the moment, I'm currently hosting a competition where every single month I'm giving away a 12 by 18 inch print of your choice of one of my images. So head over to my website, the link is below, and yeah, literally just sign up to my newsletter and you'll be possibly winning a free print by the end of the month. So hope you guys do have a great rest of your evening. With all that said and done, I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.